accepted that, even though there were separatist tendencies in some of these countries themselves, and this was in contrast to their very own interests. This just shows the fact that many countries, including some former great powers, became German satellites. They stooped that low because of the opportunism of their leaders. And this led to the NATO aggression against Yugoslavia, and they all became satellites of the United States of America.
Dakle, ne može se uopšte.
So one cannot bring into question at all the right of Yugoslavia to survive, or can one bring into question the illegal character of its breakup as the basis and reason for the conflict. It is cynical, to say the least, that those who brought the peoples of the former Yugoslavia to mutual wars and a cycle of violence and hatred, that they now, pretending to be naive, allow themselves to administer justice, as they call it. Our peoples should never forget who the guiltiest party of all is for the tragedy in the territory of the former Yugoslavia, and that will be shown and proven clearly. In Nuremberg, the first and basic crime was the crime against peace, which in this illegal tribunal of yours is not the case only because those who had established this unlawful institution would have to take themselves to trial first and foremost. When looking at historical developments, and there are documents and writings about all of this, and the side opposite has all of these documents, the war in Yugoslavia was not started by Serbs, nor did it come from Serbia. It was started by the ultra-rightist separatist movement in Croatia, in Kosovo and Metohija, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, by the Ustashis and neo-Nazis, to put it briefly, Islamic fundamentalists and Albanian terrorists. It is not hard to prove, and you will see how this will take place, that the fratricidal war in the territory of the former Yugoslavia was instigated and supported precisely by those who established this court of yours, Germany, the Vatican, and the United States. The destruction and the breakup of a sovereign state was something they carried out in spite of international and national law. Also, it is not difficult to prove that they resorted to highly undemocratic methods in the breakup of Yugoslavia, although they kept claiming that they were very humane. They call themselves the international community, but in the territory of Yugoslavia, Croatia, Bosnia, Kosovo, they supported a totalitarian chauvinist elite, terrorists, Islamic fundamentalists, neo-Nazis, whose objective was an ethnically pure state, that is to say, a state without any Serbs. The methods of cleansing the Serb people that the Croatian ultranationalist movement carried out through their paramilitary units in the beginning of 1991 are quite identical to what happened to the same people in the same area 50 years before that. In the early 90s, it was the Serbs who were killed and expelled from Croatia. And this happened just before Tudjman came into power. It was Serbs who were being killed and expelled from Kosovo and Metohija.
Ta međunarodna zajednica.
This international community headed by the USA, favored in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo Islamic fundamentalism, and Islamic fundamentalists carried out many crimes in the territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo. In addition to everything else, crimes against Serbs are being committed in Kosovo with the full assistance of the NATO-led coalition, fully trampling upon Resolution 1244 of the Security Council, which codified the terms of the ceasefire that were offered to Yugoslavia. When Yugoslavia could not be taken and when the war had to be stopped, terms were offered guaranteeing the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Yugoslavia, that the protection force of the United Nations would come to Kosovo to protect the entire population. That was their obligation. And to a certain extent, the army and the police of the Yugoslav state and Serbia would have to go back to Kosovo. None of this was actually accomplished. Everything else was accomplished. NATO soldiers came together with criminals, expelled a large number of people, torched many churches, but I'll move on to that later. What I wish to say now is that as far as crimes against the Serb people are concerned over the past 10 years, there is an enormous amount of documents, and they were offered to this institution and to many institutions throughout the world. The side opposite did not even glance at these documents. The reason is that the international community, when causing a conflict in our territories, decided in advance that the Serbs were to be blamed for everything, and that is why everybody else had to be portrayed as the victim.
O tome kako je izazvan rat na prostoru
As to how the war started in the territory of the former Yugoslavia, the authors of the so-called Kosovo indictment against me, in paragraphs 79 and 80, presented one of their rare true assertions contained in this otherwise totally false and shameful document. I'm quoting their text. Slovenia on the 25th of June 1991 proclaimed independence from the SFRY, which led to the outbreak of war. That is what it says in their document. Croatia proclaimed its independence on the 25th of June 1991, which led to fighting between Croatian military forces on the one hand and the JNA and paramilitary units and the army of the Serb Krajina on the other hand. Bosnia and Herzegovina proclaimed its independence on the 6th of March 1992, which, after the 6th of April 1992, led to a war of wide proportions. So, even the authors of this false indictment probably did not envisage that they would issue an indictment against me for Croatia and Bosnia later on, said themselves who caused this war. This is indeed a criminal enterprise, and there are protagonists both at home and abroad, and they acted in contravention of Yugoslav law and international law. This is a trampling of law. And then there was a forceful secession of Slovenia and Croatia, and they carried out the gravest of all crimes that was dealt with in Nuremberg and Tokyo, and that is the crime against peace.